Welcome to the Drama Coach podcast. I'm Lisa, actor and communication coach, helping young performers and the people surrounding them build confidence, skill, and a real understanding of the industry. The car journey home. What to say after an audition or show. Hello and welcome back to the Drama Coach podcast. Today's episode is a shorter solo one, and it's for parents of young performers. I want to talk about something that sounds small, but is actually really important. The car journey home. So the journey after an audition, the journey after a show, the journey after a festival, a drama class, a self-tape, a rehearsal, or even a school performance. Of course, this might not be in the car. Your self-tape might be at home, and it might literally be the journey off out or up to your bedroom or whatever it might be. But it's those moments after. You might be on public transport, you might be going for a walk, but it's those moments after the performance or the audition that I'm talking about here. Because what happens in those few minutes afterwards can really affect how a child feels about performing. It can affect whether they feel proud, whether they feel safe enough to try again, whether they start overthinking, or whether they begin to connect performing with pleasure. And that's the aim, right? You pick this up because it's something that they love. The last thing we want to do as parents or carers is change that or take anything away from that. And just to be really clear, this isn't me telling anyone how to parent. Every child is different, every family is different, and you know your own child better than anyone. So please just take what feels useful, leave what doesn't. Tweak anything you like to fit your own child and your own situation. I'm simply sharing this from my experiences as a drama coach, an actor, a chaperone, a mum, because I have seen firsthand how much these little moments around performances and auditions can really matter. And absolutely, I have been guilty of doing the wrong thing on more than one occasion. So this episode is for me as much as it is for you, and I really hope you take it in the spirit of me sharing experience, trying to help you out, and just leave or ignore anything that isn't relevant or doesn't work for you, please. So I know how tempting it is to ask all of the questions straight away, fire them at your child. How did it go? What did they say? Did you remember your lines? Were the other children good? Did you think you got it? Why didn't you smile more if you were watching the performance? Or, did you do that bit we practiced? All of this comes from a place of love. I know it does. Of course it does. We care, we're invested, we want them to feel good, and we want to understand what happened, whether we were watching this performance or not, for whatever reason. It could be a closed audition that you weren't watching. But sometimes, in that first moment afterwards, the child does not need an interview. In fact, I'd go so far as to say, most of the time, they don't need an interview after what they've just done. They need this sort of soft landing. So today I'm going to talk through how we can support young performers in that car journey, in inverted commas, especially after auditions and performances, without adding any extra pressure to them. Because this industry and performing in general already asks quite a lot of these young people. They have to be brave, they have to be seen, they have to handle nerves time and time again, they have to take direction, and they have to deal with not always being chosen. So our role as the adult beside them is not to make every experience feel like a judgment, it's to help them process it. So first, don't rush the debrief. That is the first thing I'm going to say to you, and that's what I've hinted at already here. Some children come out of an audition or performance absolutely buzzing, and they want to tell you every single detail before they've even got their coat on. Amazing, brilliant, let them go for it. Others come out quiet, or of course the same child could come out differently depending on the situation. Quiet doesn't always mean it went badly. It might mean, and you know this, it might mean they're tired, they're processing, they're coming down from the adrenaline, they might be disappointed, they might just need a snack. Honestly, sometimes the most helpful thing you can say is, well done, I'm proud of you for doing it. Do you want to talk about it now, or shall we just drive for a bit? Then that gives them the choice. It tells them you're there, it tells them you care,
but it also tells them that they don't have to perform the experience back to you immediately. And I think that matters. Because if every audition is followed by a big analysis, children can start to feel that the audition isn't over when they leave the room. It continues on in the car, it continues at home, and it continues with all of these questions. And I feel that can become exhausting. So instead of jumping straight into how did it go, and I know I do this, you could try, I loved watching you be brave today. You handled that really well. That was a big thing to do. Or let's get you some food and you can tell me about it when you're ready. I mean, it sounds really simple, but I feel that these kind of phrases change the energy. And again, you can use what works for you. My next point is focus on the effort, not the outcome. After an audition, especially a professional one, it's very easy for children to think, if I get the part, I did well. If I don't get the part, I failed. And we all know that this isn't true. Casting is not that simple. I post about it lots. I talk about it in my episodes. A child might do a brilliant audition and still not be right for that role. They might be too tall, too short, too old looking, too young looking, too similar to somebody who's already been cast, not the right family match, not available for the dates, or simply just not what the creative team are now imagining for whatever reason. This doesn't mean they weren't good. So in that car journey home or whatever journey home you're having, I think we need to be careful not to make the result the only thing that matters. So instead of saying that, do you think you got it? Try those, what felt good about the audition today or the performance? What are you proud of? What did you learn? If you want to go into, hearing more and thinking onwards and being analytical, what do you learn? What did you learn is a lovely phrase. Was there anything you'd do differently next time? And that could be for any number of reasons. It doesn't mean they did something wrong or missed something out. And even then, don't ask all of those questions at once. It's not a police interview. Just, pick one or two, or just one gentle question is enough. And if they don't want to answer, that's okay. You could say something like, well, I'm proud of the way you went in and that you gave it a go. And you could just leave it there for a bit. Because this is the bit they can control, right? They can control their preparation. They can control their attitude, how they listen, how they respond to direction. They can control whether they keep going when they feel nervous, but they cannot control whether they are chosen or not. And the sooner young performers understand that, the healthier the relationship with the industry will be. My next point is be careful with instant corrections. I, again, know I can do this. This is said with love. Be careful with those instant corrections. I know it's very tempting. You've watched the performance perhaps, or you've helped them out with the self-tape, or they missed a line, or you could hear that they rushed, you saw them look to the floor and you think, oh, if I just tell them that now, they can fix it next time. I'm 100% guilty of this. Yes, it feels useful at the time, but the timing matters. The journey home is perhaps not the best place for detailed notes. If you want to remember this, if you really are keen that they need to know that thing that they did that you can correct because you've seen it a million times, or that's something that perhaps they weren't aware of and they need to know, go and write it down. We can take a leaf out of their book. We tell them to go and write down their notes from a director or whatever. Jot them down before you start this journey and then chat to them about it at another time if and when it's relevant and it's, that it's going to land softly, I suppose. Especially if they're tired, disappointed, embarrassed or full of adrenaline, this is not the time or the place for those corrections. The first thing they start hearing is what they did wrong. They might start to associate performing with criticism rather than with growth. And we don't want that, do we? That doesn't mean that we never give feedback. Of course not. Feedback is really important, but we just need to choose the moment. And it is hard, isn't it? Because we're their parents. We need to be there for everything. But a lot of the time we are their coach, or mummager as I tend to nickname them. We are so many things to that child in the performing arts industry that it's really difficult, isn't it, to separate the two and know, I suppose, when to be good cop and when to be bad cop. And I think this is probably not the time. So you might say things like, there are a couple of things we can look at another time, but for now, well done for getting up there. I mean, that might work for some. I think that would make my child spiral into thoughts of, well, what was it then? Tell me now, mum. I, again, for myself, would probably just jot these down and keep them for another time. You could say, oh, let's talk about notes tomorrow. Tonight, let's just be proud. Let's celebrate. You did it. It was brilliant. I've got some little notes, but we'll talk about those another time, or we'll look at those just before your next audition. It's not lowering your standards. This is protecting the relationship, and it's protecting the child's confidence. Confidence isn't built by pretending everything is perfect. No, far from it. But it's also not built by picking apart every little detail. When a child is emotionally full, they've just been through that huge thing. This isn't the time for notes, in my opinion, or coaching or improvement. And I know I need to tell myself this from time to time, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. Straight after the thing, they just might need to feel supported, held, heard, or sitting quiet, whatever it is that you know they need. Just let them have that. So after a show, let them enjoy it. Performances are slightly different from auditions, right? You know this. After a show, children are often on an absolute high. They've had the lights, the applause, the costumes, the nerves, the excitement, the backstage chaos, potentially, or fun with friends. And of course, this could be a film shoot as well. That's going to have a slightly different energy again, so we'll focus on show for now. And again, the car journey home could let them enjoy that feeling or could accidentally knock it out of them. So after a show, before you mention the missed line or the costume mishap or the timing or the song note or whatever it is, the forgotten prop perhaps, just let them have the win. Let them enjoy this. You could say things like, you look like you were having such a good time. I loved seeing you up there. You worked so hard for that. That moment where you really listened to the other actors was lovely. You should be so proud of yourself. Those kind of things. And notice that those comments are about the process and presence and not just being the best, in inverted commas. Because not every child will be the lead, not every child will have the big solo, and not every child will get the loudest laugh or the biggest applause. But every child can learn to contribute and enjoy and feel special about that contribution. Every child can listen, they can be a part of the ensemble, they can learn to show up, commit, and tell the story. And that's what we want to celebrate. Not just, I've used this before, you were amazing. I can't help those words fall out of my mouth sometimes. Of course we say that too, but we're human and we're proud and we're emotional. But I think the more specific we can be, the more useful it becomes. So instead of just, you were brilliant, maybe let's say we, because as I said, I am guilty of this. Maybe we could say things like, you stayed really focused. You recovered so well when that bit went wrong. You listened beautifully. You looked really confident. You told, not that you stole, well, they might steal the story, but you told the story clearly and you supported the others on stage. I think that attitude is so important. However big a role a child has, I think if they are part of supporting others in any way, shape or form, I think that's brilliant. And those sort of phrases that praise them, I think help them understand what they actually did well. Now, this brings me on to my next point, talking about attitudes. Don't compare them to other children. This is a big one for me as a drama coach, really, because I've seen this happen. It's hard, isn't it? But try not to compare them to other children, even positively. It can be really tempting to say, oh, you were much better than all the rest, or than that child doing the same part as you, or you should have had the bigger part. These are probably not phrases I say, but I've definitely heard people say, I don't know why they chose them instead, or you sang better than he did, she did. I understand the instinct, especially if you're feeling protective, but comparison can become really unhelpful because then your child starts watching everyone else through a competitive lens. And I don't think that's useful at this stage or ever really, in my opinion, but everybody has a slightly different view, don't they, about the industry and about how you get that thick skin. But for me, it's not about competing against others. It's about competing against yourself, doing better every time, learning more, progressing, that sort of thing. You don't want them constantly measuring themselves, in my opinion. I think it's a dangerous road. There'll always be someone who gets the role, someone who gets the solo, someone who seems more confident. We don't always know what's going on under all of that. Someone with more credits than you, someone with a bigger part. There's always going to be that. Even when you think you made it, there's more and there's more that you can always reach for. So I think it's far healthier to bring them back to their own work. As I said, sort of competing against yourself, not against others. So instead of you were better than them, try things like, you brought so much truth to that. You've improved so much since last time. They might forget that. They might forget to note. Maybe it was last year's show. Maybe it was last week's performance. If you notice that improvement, let them know because they might not have noticed that. And I think that's really important. You looked more relaxed today, or I could hear your words. You made a really clear choice. These are phrases that will keep their focus where it belongs, on their own growth, not on someone else's. Next point, if they're disappointed, don't rush to fix it. Again, I'm speaking from experience. I absolutely know I can get this wrong. So let's talk about disappointment. Sometimes that car journey home is not full of excitement. Sometimes they didn't get the recall, the part. Sometimes they forgot a line. Sometimes they feel they weren't as good as they wanted to be. Or sometimes they're cross or embarrassed or upset. And as parents, we often want to fix that immediately, don't we? I know I do. So perhaps we want to say things, and we shouldn't, like, oh, don't be silly, it doesn't matter, you are amazing, they don't know what they're talking about, you'll get the next one, those kind of phrases. I think before the reassurance, they need acknowledgement. And you might say things like, I can see you're disappointed. That feels hard, doesn't it? You really wanted that one. It's okay to feel upset, or I'm here. Again, I'm not telling you how to parent. You know what your child needs, but I am speaking from experience that I know I can fall into these traps. So if I can, perhaps there are others that do as well. And I've seen other parents fall into these traps. So that's why I'm sharing. And you might want to switch those for other sentences. They're just examples of what you might say. And they're sentences that hopefully mean your child won't spiral. It doesn't mean that we feel disappointed in them. It just hopefully means we're not dismissing it, because that could be an easy trap, couldn't it? You could sort of, by wanting to comfort them, dismiss it, and then they feel that their emotions aren't recognised, and that would be really sad. It's part of life, isn't it? Disappointment is part of the performing, not always, but they're, especially with auditioning, disappointment can be part of auditioning. Yeah, disappointment is a part of life, isn't it? And we need to all learn to be resilient and to deal with it. And if we can help children experience disappointment without any shame, without any panic, without making it mean that they're not good enough, then hopefully we give them that really valuable skill. So once they've had a bit of space, you can gently bring it back to, what can we learn from this? What helped? What might we try next time? And what are we going to let go of? But not necessarily all of these questions in 5 minutes. You might want to break these down and do them at different times, or just do one, just do two. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just drive or travel, whatever it is you're doing. Just let them look out the window and remind them, home is still home. You're there for them, whether they got the part or not. My next point, I believe this wholeheartedly, that your calm becomes their calm. This is one of the biggest things I've learned, and I'm still practicing it. I am not perfect at this by any means. And I've been learning this as both a parent and a coach. It's that the children often borrow our nervous system, or certainly borrow from it. If we come out of an audition frantic, tense, overly excited, full of questions, they can absorb that. They work like a lovely little sponge, don't they? You don't want them absorbing that kind of energy. They've got there enough to be dealing with without taking on your energies that aren't useful for them. So if we make every opportunity feel massive, they might start to feel that every opportunity is high stakes. And again, I come back to the point of they've chosen this because they enjoy it. And the last thing I'd want to do as a coach, as a mum, is strip that enjoyment away. That would be so sad. So I know it's hard, because sometimes it does feel really big, doesn't it? Especially if your child really wants that part. You've travelled a long way, you've spent money, you've rearranged work, siblings, dinner, parking, costumes, scripts, the whole lot. There is a lot, isn't there, that can go into an audition. Perhaps you've had many, many recalls. But the young performers need to know that their worth is not hanging on that one audition. They need to know, and I know you will, of course, shower them in love. They need to know they're still loved and valued, but whether they get that part or not. So sometimes the most powerful message is pretty ordinary. It's, well done. Let's put our seatbelts on and what we're going to have for tea. Perhaps you keep it that simple. It sounds too simple, doesn't it? But perhaps it reminds them that life's bigger than that one big moment, and that's a healthy thing. But again, I don't want to send you on the flip side and say just ignore it either. You know your young person. You know what works from them. You can read their facial expression, their body language, the things that they're saying, and you can just be mindful to tweak it to what you think or deep down that they need. So here's a few useful phrases, in case you haven't had enough already, for the car journey home. Try these. I'm proud of you for doing it. You were brave today. You don't have to talk about it straight away. What felt good? What did you enjoy? What are you proud of? We can look at notes another time. That was one experience, not the whole story. You are more than whether you get the part or not. Let's go home. And honestly, I think that last one can be really beautiful, because home should feel like a soft, safe place to go. And of course, if you are staying over somewhere and you aren't going home, well, you've got your temporary home, haven't you? If that's your hotel or whoever you're visiting, let's go back and just be together. So my final thought then. Next time your child comes out of an audition, a show, perhaps just a class or a rehearsal, or from a self-tape, just pause for a moment before launching into the questions. Ask yourself, do they need feedback right now? Do they need space? Do they need food? Do they need encouragement? Do they need to be left alone for 10 minutes? Do they just need me to be their parent, not their coach? And as I said, that's a particularly hard one for me. And these questions are landing with me and reminding me, especially that, do they need to be left alone for 10 minutes? Mine can become overwhelmed by me and the things that we're doing, and perhaps they just need a little bit of gentle time away. That's the balance, right, isn't it? Doing it, having the excitement, the adrenaline, the push, but having the calm as well, and knowing where you can get that balance. We can support young performers. We can help them grow. We can take their ambitions seriously. We can guide them, encourage them, and prepare them. But I would say we still have to let them be children as well. This industry has got enough pressure without us adding to it. Sometimes the best thing we can do on that car journey home is not to analyse the performance, however tempting it may be. It's simply to remind them that they are safe, loved, and more than the result of that performance or audition. I hope you found that episode helpful. And as I said at the beginning, please don't think I am nagging you or telling you how to parent. I'm sharing ideas that have definitely helped me. And I'm still a work in progress too on these things, especially trying to juggle the mum and the coach side by side for my children. So I hope you found it useful. Let me know in the comments or drop me an email, lisa@thedramacoach.co.uk, if you'd like to share anything that's come up from this episode or you'd like to suggest anything for future episodes. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated, do share it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to follow for more. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and other socials at The Drama Coach, and on YouTube for longer videos and training. See you in the next episode.